Hi, welcome back to Obsessed by Everything Bravo. It's Meredith, your host, guiding you on the journey through the Housewives. Starting from the bottom, now we're here, which is the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills Season 2, Episode 23, the last episode of the reunion. And I would like to say, for those of you watching, maybe you can see if anybody's watching, but for those of you who are not, I do have my Angie K. I got this at BravoCon. It's high body count hair sweatshirt. This is actually the first time I've ever worn this. I don't have a lot of merch from Housewives. I do have a Loverboy sweatshirt because I absolutely love that, except for my hairdresser did get some bleach on that one. And so the back end of it is like bleached. And then I was like, because it was an expensive sweatshirt. It was like $70. I was like, you know what I'm going to do is just spackle it with bleach and then it maybe like make it look intentional. And I just never have done that, but that would be a good idea for me to do. And then I also have a Beauty Lab and Laser t-shirt that my girlfriend got me when she went to Salt Lake City. She went to Beauty Lab and Laser and took pictures in their parking lot. And then she went in to get me that t-shirt and the people working there were like, yeah, people do this all the time. Which honestly I love. But I was like, I need to start wearing my merch for the show. So here we are, high body count hair. Of course, none of the merch that I have is from shows that we're talking about, which is Beverly Hills. I have a lot of Beverly Hills ornaments on my Christmas tree. I have nothing that we've talked about yet, but I do have a lot. I'm sure I'll bring it up when we talk about it. But today we're talking about the very last episode of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And of course, you know that I am devastated. Oh my God, my lips are so dry. This Accutane baby has got me just in the winter was a bad time to be doing this. Because everything is just dry, inside and out dry, bloody nose, just everything you can think of. The good thing is I don't have to wash my hair. I only have to wash my hair like once a week. I hate washing my hair. But it's very dirty. Sorry. But anyway, I don't know what am I talking about? Oh, the reunion. The reunion of Beverly Hills. I'm always sad when we get to the last episode of a show. This reunion was not as bad. Like, I just remember that one New York reunion and I was just like, I don't think I can ever watch this show again. It was terrible. This one's not so bad. I feel like we are actually getting down to some issues, some nitty gritty issues, and I appreciate that. I feel like we're really opening up about Taylor and all of her issues. And this season, I think, was really good. For me, this is definitely S tier season of Housewives, just really in the archives going into the museum. I think we are right now in the golden age of Housewives. Everything was just so good. Everything was firing on all cylinders. And it stays that way for a really long time. I think kind of towards the end of the teens and going into that COVID, everything that came out during COVID was terrible. Except for Salt Lake City, because that was like the beginning of Salt Lake City. But it was just hard to do stuff. It was hard to film. I feel like Potomac had a good COVID season, but like literally everything else was just trash. So, but for right now, so we've got like a good 8 years where we're really in the golden age. I feel like people are upset about current stuff because, it's not as good as what they're used to, but it's just like, it is what it is, because what it is like they're constantly having to ratchet up the drama and you can't, you know what I mean? It's not, there isn't like infinity level of drama. Like once you start to get into these really dark places, there's no going back. You just have to start over. But that's a problem for a future day. Today, we're going to be talking about season 3. So we're opening up, and there's not a lot to this episode, which is good, so we can talk about the season as a whole. But they open up just back talking about how Taylor maybe suspects that Russell was murdered. And like I said, I hadn't heard about this. I don't know if she talks about this in season 3, the next season, like I said, we learn a lot more about Taylor's struggles in season 3. I feel like that's her arc. And then we don't have Taylor anymore. Taylor, we move on. We get kind of a cast reset, and then those people don't work out that much, and we get another cast reset, and those people are amazing. Those people being Lisa Rinna and Eileen Davidson. And then we get Erica Jane, and then we get Dorit, and those people are all still like around, right? Well, not Eileen, she left, but so we're in like this first iteration, and then we kind of have a weak season, which I actually thought was pretty good. And then we get into like amazing stuff for several years. We're not there yet. But so Taylor's story next year is going to be a lot about what happens in the aftermath of Russell dying and all this stuff. So we'll get more information, but for me, I just don't feel like he was murdered. I feel like you're already like kind of a weak man if you're beating women up, you know what I mean? Or just like resorting to violence in general. Unless that's like your profession, like you're a boxer or something, like you really shouldn't be beating anyone up. I think that just shows a sign of lack of intelligence, like you can't talk your way out of it. And, you know, so she says that he was such a tough guy. I find it hard to believe that someone can convince him to do something without a fight. What do you mean someone can convince him to do something? He convinced himself. I feel like, and I'm not trying to say like people who commit suicide are weak. That's not what I'm saying. And I want to make that clear. I understand that there's mental health defects, and I wish that he hadn't killed himself. Like, I obviously, I feel like they needs to say that, and maybe I shouldn't put that in the other episodes, but I obviously don't want this man to die. That's not where I'm going. What I am saying is, just because he's dead, I'm not going to not talk shit about him. Everybody is fair game for me to talk shit about on this podcast. Whether you're alive, whether you're dead, well, have at it. And I think personally he's a piece of shit because he is a wife beater, but I don't think that is grounds for death. You know what I'm saying? But what she's trying to say is like he was such a strong person. She doesn't see that he could have killed himself, and I'm saying I don't think he was a strong person. I think he was a weak person. Now, that's neither here nor there on whether he killed himself or not. I don't know. I've like just never heard I've never heard anybody say, "Oh no, he didn't kill himself." Like so not since this conversation. So we're going to move on from that. But Andy says in your book, you say Russell used to monitor you secretly, and she's like, yeah, I would find recording devices everywhere. He was recording me every day after he left for work. He had devices all over the house and in the cars. And again, just to pause here, this type of relationship is about control and power. In the same way that rape is about power, it's not about having sex, right? And I think we know that now. When a man rapes someone else, it's not because of sexual gratification. It's about power. They want power over someone. Very similar to abusive relationships and all kinds of abusive relationships. It doesn't need to be physical, but emotionally abusive, verbally abusive. And I think Taylor, she talks about it here, but I feel like she made it very clear in the finale when she went to go talk to the women. And also maybe in that last episode when we're hearing these text messages, she didn't maybe start out this way, but her self-esteem had just taken such a nosedive because of the way that he talked to her and about her, that she didn't feel like she was worthy anymore of being in a safe relationship. But it was because of the way that he talked about her. And when I started talking about Kim was starting to say, he talks down to me, he's controlling, he needs to be where I am at all times. And we saw that demonstrated in Hawaii when Kim walked up on Kim, Adrian, and Paul and was like, I don't like this. I don't like this. Like, that's very controlling. Like, that was like the very beginning of her relationship. I think Kim, because she had a lot of family and friends supporting her and access to money as well, like, never forget that, she was able to identify, hey, there are some things that he's doing and saying that I don't jive with, and I'm going to get myself out of this situation. And Taylor just never was able to be there for whatever reason, and we don't know because we weren't there, right? And so you can see that maybe someone starts out one way and they just get beaten down over time, emotionally, thinking that they're not really worth it. And it's because of this kind of stuff, right? It's because he's listening to every phone conversation that you have with your friends. He's going to cut you off from talking to that person. You know, if he's calling you a piece of shit, eventually you hear that enough, you believe you're a piece of shit. And it's not about, it's about this control, and for whatever reason, to make himself feel better about himself by taking a, you know, beautiful and accomplished, you know, woman and making them into, you know, making themselves better, I guess. I don't actually know. I'm not an expert on this type of thing. But I find it's just like, it's just interesting. It's not about, it's about power and control. And that, you know, and that's why these people are pieces of shit. Okay. Then Andy says, so she wrote this book. Now, I've not read this book. Maybe I'll put this on the reading list. Sounds like it's going to be some difficult reading. And you know what? I keep forgetting to put trigger warning. Sorry, that's my bad for not. But yeah, this is dark. If you can't handle this, don't worry about it. We'll be talking about stuff in the next, you know, whatever. But it gets worse. So Andy says, so he had you take a lie detector test once to prove what? And Taylor says, I took a polygraph test to prove that I hadn't had relationships with people he accused me of having. I passed 100%. And then like a month later, he said he thought I cheated the test or paid off the examiner. So essentially, he's insanely jealous and thinking that she's having extramarital affairs with people. And she's like, no, of course not. And I'll take a lie detector test to prove it. So he has her do that. And then she passes. And then later he's like, well, you cheated. What a nightmare. What a nightmare. And honestly, for listeners, if you're in a relationship like that and there's got to be resources. Please recognize if you're in a relationship that even remotely sounds like this one or like the one that Kim was getting into, please get out. I don't know. I can look up resources and, you know, try to, you know, contact someone. There's someone in your life. Everyone in your life will help you. And I understand it's difficult. Please get out. This is insane. This sounds like a nightmare to live through. So then Andy asks, you also say he went on the attack when he heard someone offer you help. What happened? Okay, so this is a long story. Let me just break it down for you. Taylor was at a friend's house. This friend and her fiance were planning a wedding. Taylor was helping her plan the wedding. I don't know why. And at some point, Russell was there. He got bored with the wedding planning discussion. And so he said, I'm going to go home. He didn't go home. He hid in the bushes. And then later, when they were wrapping up the evening, her friend and the fiance were like, hey, if you need help, we will be there for you. Whatever you need to get out of this relationship, we're going to be there for you. And Taylor says, I just told them if something happens to me, take care of Kennedy. Russell jumps out of the bushes. It makes me laugh because this is so ridiculous. He jumps out of the bushes and starts kicking the shit out of the fiance, hit him in the back of the head. So the other man is knocked out, okay? Takes Taylor, throws her in the pool, holds her underwater until she loses consciousness. So 2 people here are losing consciousness. Then he gets up, threw the friend in the pool. If it was me, I'd be calling 911. threw the dog in the pool because the dog was also going. Now the fiance is come to and is starting to fist fight, throws him in the pool. And I'm assuming that the girlfriend at this point, like cops were there. Russell escapes before the cops get there. The friend had to be taken away in an ambulance, and he needed plastic surgery and veneers that cost $10,000. So Andy's like, well, did your friend prosecute? And Taylor says, no, I asked them not to because I was concerned about how Kennedy and I would survive. And I feel like over and over and over again, Taylor keeps talking about in a monetary way, she doesn't know how Kennedy and her would survive. And so that's another, if you're asking why she went on the show is another reason why she went on the show. But I'm just like, why didn't you get a job? Like you could have gotten a job. This is 15 years ago, right? You could have gotten a job making $60,000, $75,000. And I understand in California, that's not a lot of money. You could have gotten a very cheap apartment, 1 bedroom. You could have gotten out of there. You could have, like, why did you go on Housewives? I feel like people do this all the time. It's just, she keeps talking about money, but she's got Hermes bags. She's got lots of jewelry that she could sell to buy a home. Like, you could sell an Hermes bag for a down payment on a nice home. Like, hello. It doesn't ring true to me. And I feel like her thought process is, I wouldn't be living the Beverly Hills lifestyle if I had left Russell. And it's like, yeah. Don't you think that's worth it for your daughter to have not grow up in this environment? I don't know. And I want to be clear, I'm not like victim blaming Taylor, but it just, I have questions. Like, I just feel like many, many women go through this, and for one reason or another, they get out. She keeps going back to, well, there wasn't money. And I just feel like that is just something she's saying. I don't think that's right. So a viewer question says that you claimed Camille exaggerated what you told her about Russell's abuse. How so? Taylor goes, it was not an exaggeration. I guess I said Russell dislocated my jaw. She said broke. And for some reason, Russell felt like that was the perfect thing for him to go in and say, well, we can take it out of the show. So what that means is Russell was going to sue the network to get that part taken out of the show because obviously it makes him look bad. And so that was that whole thing. It was like very much semantics, but yeah, it's semantics because then now it becomes a he said, she said, because Camille could be like, well, she said you broke her jaw. I'm just repeating what she said. Andy said, I read in your book that your jaw was popped out of his socket and you popped it back. And she's like, yeah, over the toilet. I mean, I can't even imagine. I literally cannot imagine, the trauma of I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable. I don't think it's funny. Always have laughed in uncomfortable situations ever since I was a little kid. In fact, my family loves to tell a story about when I was like in kindergarten and we were doing like a Christmas program and everybody was on risers. Some kid fell off the riser and I immediately started laughing. There's video of this. And the whole crowd started laughing. Like, we didn't know if that kid was okay yet, but it's like me just laughing. So sorry. Some of this stuff is funny, but some of this stuff just makes me sad. Andy says, Brandy, you wrote in your blog, after the Malibu party, I decided to stay away from Taylor and Russell because nothing was adding up to me. What did you mean by that? What do you mean? What did you mean by that? Like, I don't know. Like, they were all saying the same thing. Why are you? Brandy says, just that it didn't make sense to me. I guess I'm in the group that doesn't make sense. And right now it freaks me out because he's not here to defend himself. Camille is agreeing with her. And she says, we've talked about the whole thing. It creeps us out. It's so horrific. Brandy says, I'm sorry about what I said about your book before, but you guys were talking about me. So Brandy is so interesting to me because she really just has word vomit, and she just is quick to anger, and she just goes so low. That's one thing about Brandy is like she's not taking Michelle Obama's advice. It's like, you go low, I go to the floor. I'm in hell. You know what I mean? Like, she's going low. But then she's also like got that Ramona thing where she's very quick to just like apologize. But unlike Ramona, she understands that she understands that she took it too far. Ramona will only apologize if other people are like, "Oh my God," you know what I mean? And then she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," because Ramona really doesn't care. Brandy cares, but there's something in her that she cannot stop before she says something terrible. Like she knows, like we're still just within a few hours probably of whatever she said about how Taylor wrote a book, like in a hot minute, and she's already apologizing for it, which is like a growth and an understanding that we don't see in a lot of housewives. But she still can't stop herself from saying it, and she'll repeat this pattern over and over again where she just blurts something terrible out, and then she has to apologize for it. And it's like, the true growth would happen if you just did not blurt the thing out. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, so she's apologizing to Taylor about talking bad about her book. And she's basically like, but you said something to me. So she's trying to use the excuse of, you were talking about me first. And Taylor's like, but you said the book thing first. And Brandy's like, well, I'm sad, I was sorry. And they're back and forth here. So then a viewer question. Taylor, let me get this straight. Russell abused you and smashed your head in, which is like, okay, no. But the moment that you were getting ready to get tossed out of the housewife circle, you finally decided to move out. What gives? And so this is where Taylor says that's not the case. She says it has nothing to do with that. I had an MRI result, and I found out that I had an orbital, that's right under your eye, floor blowout. I needed surgery, and I might have lost my eye. That's what made me leave. So what that says to me, and just like the timeline of things, so they had the Adrian's fashion show. They had a big blowout. It was her birthday. Went to Vegas. While everybody was in Vegas, Russell sends the email. Then they come back from Vegas. It's the white party. They get kicked out of the white party. Taylor goes home. She has said that she asked to see the email. So she asked to see the email. I'm assuming they got into a huge fight. He punched her so hard in the face that she broke her orbital bone. She had to go get an MRI. And that is in the interim time between the white party and the Sir party was several weeks where Taylor was not filming or doing anything because she had this huge black eye. Because remember, when she showed up at Sir, she had a black eye that was still healing and swollen. And in between that time was when everybody else went to Hawaii, right? But obviously Taylor could have probably gone to Hawaii because nobody was mad at Taylor. Now, they were questioning on whether she knew about the email, but they weren't necessarily mad at her. They were really just like, we can't be around Russell. So, but she obviously couldn't go because of the eye. Now, there was a scene with her and Dana where they were talking, and I can't remember if she had a black eye or not, which would be interesting to go back and look. I'm not going to, but it doesn't matter. But I'm just laying out the timeline of things. And so, yeah, I think two things can be true, because I feel like being mad at Russell about getting kicked out of filming and like not being able to go on the trip and all that probably led to the fight where she now has broken bones. And it doesn't sound like this is the first broken bone she's had. So anyway, that's her answer. I find that credible. Like, yes, Housewives was probably important to her, but I think two things can be true here. I think both of the, I think, yes, getting kicked out of the Housewives made her upset enough to realize that it's him or me at this point, So Andy says, I know this is difficult to re-examine. And she says, it's important to me because I have recognized now that I was living in an unhealthy environment and I drug a lot of my friends into that. And I have a lot of remorse from that, and remorse for my husband's death, and remorse for letting my child live in a dangerous situation. So now I'm dusting myself off and hoping that people can forgive and forget, and that people like me haven't lived a day in my shoes. People that don't like me haven't lived a day in my shoes. And I think this is where, of course, I'm saying this a lot faster than what these people say it. This is where I was like, Taylor doesn't need to apologize or even explain herself. And then that's what made me realize Taylor explaining herself 15 years ago is probably what let me down the path of realizing that Taylor doesn't need to explain herself now in 2026. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of eye-opening, because if it wasn't for this, like, where would we be? Not we, but like, where would I be? Where would I be on this issue? Because I really just don't know anything else that would have given me the insight into this type of abuse, other than just like the true crime that I also, I was a lover of true crime. I have like kind of let that go for a while, mostly because I already know about most of the big stuff, and I don't like stuff that is not fit. Like, I don't like stuff. I don't like John Bonet, because you don't know, and I know it was her brother, but when you don't have a clear answer, I don't like that. I need to have like someone, I need to have a killer identified, is what I'm saying. I don't like mysteries. Okay. But that is the end of the Taylor segment. Okay, so now Dana joins, and I'm like, I don't see the need for her to come out. Also, she's wearing blue eyeshadow. And so, of course, everybody is kind of talking about her big thing was the $25,000 sunglasses. She won't say what she's wearing, but then Adrian's like, show her the shoes. And for some reason, I thought they were going to be like a Malafoof, but it just says fuck you on the side. Like, okay. Of course, they don't actually say that, but it's like F asterisk CKU. Then Andy's like, being the new girl is never easy, but being decked out in her $25,000 sunglasses, Valentino hot pants, and $1 million lollipop holder let her know that Dana has arrived. So the number one question they got was $25,000 for sunglasses. Don't you have better things to spend your money on? And Dana's like, I didn't think it was that big of a deal, to be honest. I looked around at all the other girls. She's got a jet. She's got a casino. Jiggy's got a better wardrobe. So I thought, why not? So then Andy's like, Camille, you said most people say who have a lot of money don't brag about it. Do you think Dana bragged too much? Camille says, in the beginning, yes. And Dana's like, these are not low-key humble chicks. Look at them. Lisa says, it was a bit weird when you say the prices. It was weird. And then I don't know why everybody is coming for Jiggy so much. Dana's like, your dog wears a tire for every event. And then Lisa's like, yeah, because he's got alopecia. Like, he has to be covered, so we just buy him clothes. So then this is interesting. Dana tells her story. She said, I left home at 15 and I built my whole life, and I'm really proud of myself. And maybe that's tacky of me, but this is who I am. So Andy asks about her life, and she says some kind of town in Massachusetts. So apparently her parents were divorced, and her mom died in a car accident. So then she moved to New York City with her dad, and her dad was very rich and her mom was very poor. So it was like she suddenly went from very poor to now living very rich. She was not used to having glamour, and then now she was having all these glamorous things, and it was just like very dichotomous for her. And also that she went to like this really fancy boarding school. She said what it was, and Andy was like, oh, like he was like all impressed. I didn't write it down because I don't care that much. And it was just like all these things were just like shoved in her face, but she never really felt a part of it because she, for the most part, had grown up very poor, which is like, your dad's a piece of shit then if he wasn't giving your mom any money, but whatever. So that's basically what it is. It's just like she always just wanted to be in that crowd but never felt a part of it. So I think in her mind, just having expensive things is enough and not, um, I don't know, just being genuine, because it's like, well, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Very strange, but it does kind of explain a little bit about why she is the way that she is, but also no. Because I mean, maybe it's just like a new money thing. I don't know. Another viewer question was, you may be a party planner, but game night proved that you aren't a great hostess. Not only did you allow Brandy to get attacked, but you joined in. Are you so desperate for friends that you condone bullying? And Dana says, I have a different opinion about what happened on game night. Kim came to the door. Kyle was very concerned about her, and they kept going into the bathroom to make sure she looked good. But then Brandy kept calling out the fact that they were going in the bathroom, making it seem like Kim was on drugs or something was going on. So when Kyle backlashed, it didn't actually surprise me because Brandy had been poking fun all evening. And Brandy goes, Pam. And she was like, yeah. She said, watch the episode. And Dana's like, it's not only like the episode that aired. I was there and I invited you even after you said that my fiance had cheated on me, which was not appropriate. And the least you could do is try to be a good guest and be nice and friendly and happy. But you kept saying, well, there they go to the bathroom again. And what are they doing in the bathroom? So when Kyle snapped, it didn't surprise me. Brandy's like, well, we have two different views about what happened that night. And Dana says, clearly. Then a viewer question was to Taylor, because of course she's Taylor's friend, and it was, Taylor, were you surprised by how she bragged? And Taylor said, she's always been a good friend to me. And Dana says, you know what? I think it's a compliment to these women that I want to be their friend, that I want to put myself out there to be their friend. I'm never going to be ashamed for that. And I'll kiss their ass all over again because that's just who I am. Which I appreciate Dana. Now, we do get a scene, a very iconic scene from Dana next semester, next season. So I'll just hold on closing out the Dana chapter. But again, Dana, if you're interested in podcasts, and I feel like you are, if you're here, Dana does have her own podcast where she talks about Bravo stuff. So if you are interested in more Dana content, there's tons of it that you can peruse. And I'm sure she has Instagram that you can go check out, or TikToks, or whatever you want. But that, I appreciate Dana for just being like, look, this is who I am. And, oh, well. So we go on commercial break. We come back. Dana's gone. Now, Ken, Paul, and Mauricio have all joined. Now, this was so weird, but how they normally do husbands is they keep the ladies where they are, and they either add the husbands on the couch, or they'll put them in like high like bar chairs behind the housewives. But for this one, they put all the men on one couch, and then they made all the ladies go over to the other side of the room. It's very strange. So they asked Ken about therapy, and he was like, look, I understand that it works for some people. It just doesn't work for me. I have no problem with people going to therapy, and that's totally fine. I'd rather just sit down with my wife, as I'd done for 30 years, and we can talk it out. And Lisa says, and have me tell you how it works. And Andy asked, have you and Taylor gotten past that? And he was like, yes, I wasn't having a go at Taylor. Kyle took me to task on it. We're still friends. So then they asked Mauricio if he's still getting random nude photos. And I guarantee you that he is and has continued to, especially now. And he says, I haven't received any nude photos this year. And apparently he was voted hottest house husband. I don't know in what poll. Then Andy says, Ken, in Hawaii, you and Brandy seem to have real chemistry. Is this the type of woman you went for back in your wild days? And let me remind you that Brandy is very close to the same age as all these other people. They act like she's 20 years younger. She's not. Okay, I went to my master list. Brandy was born in 1972. Taylor was born in 1971. Kyle was born in 1969. She is literally the same age as these people. I mean, once you are talking about people who are over 25, you're really just like, are you in your early whatever? Are you in your late whatever? It's all the same. So they act like she's this young ingenue. She is literally the same age as them. Okay, sorry, I just choked. So Ken says, in my wild days, I went for any woman, but I'm fairly attractive to women. They love me. That's why I wouldn't take my shirt off in Hawaii, because she was going to attack me. So then Andy asked Brandy what she finds attractive about him. And she's like, everything, which is like, bleh. Oh my God, he's gross. And Lisa says, she's very honest about that. She says she wants to sleep with my husband. They ask if the men are sad that Kyle put the ending to Brandy having a BJ party. And then they ask Ken if they're like, how did you keep a straight face did you keep a straight face when Cedric told you that he was a life coach? Ken is like, no, I thought he was just going to tell me that this was his rich boyfriend or just like something. But when he said life coach, I nearly fainted on the spot. Why do you think he showed up to the Sir party? To apologize or cause a scene? Ken says, you never know. He probably showed up for attention just to get on camera. Lisa's like, yeah, just to get on camera or to perpetuate it. So that would give him another chance to sell another story. It's endless abuse that we've taken from him, but I'll never hit back because it's pointless. Then we ask if Mauricio, how is your relationship to Kim? Did she apologize to you? And he says, well, right now it's in limbo. A formal apology hasn't occurred, but I assume that once Kim is all good, we'll be able to have a sit-down conversation. And I hope we're able to work it out, because it's not fun having a feud with a family member. Let's put a pin in that. Let's put a pin in that, because that is basically the next several years. And now we move on to the Kim segment. So that was kind of the end of everybody included in the reunion. And Kim has her own set one-on-one. And this is like a day or two after they filmed the other reunion. And so she comes out and she's holding a purse, like a handbag, a clutch, I guess, if you will. And it reminded me of Sophia from the Golden Girls, because she holds this handbag the entire time. Why do you need a handbag? I don't know. Like, you could have just left it in the back. Is there like, do you have an inhaler in there that you need? Like, it's very strange to me. Very strange behavior. But she's out of rehab. He says that she looks happy and healthy, and she says she's happy to be home and she's taking care of herself. He asked her what she sought treatment for, and she says, alcoholism. I'm an alcoholic. As if we're all stupid. They accused you of doing crystal meth. Like, we just need to make sure. And she says when she started the show, she means this season, that she wasn't drinking. And Andy says, well, in the Colorado trip, you were kind of like the voice of reason. And she says but just by her behavior, she started to lose confidence and she started drinking. And basically for her, it's like this cycle, because if she starts drinking, then she gets embarrassed about her behavior. And so then she starts drinking, because that like dulls those emotions. And then it's like this onward cycle that's very hard to get out of it. Andy asks about mixing medications with alcohol, like Paul told her about. And she says at game night, she had just left the doctor's office where they had given her pills, like she had ingested medicine that apparently was supposed to be taken like before bed. And Andy says, though she apologized for the accusation, Brandy thinks that maybe it helped to have everything out in the open. And Kim says, I think what Brandy has called my family and myself has not been helpful at all. And Andy's like, well, do you think you owe Brandy an apology? And Kim's like, I guess I owe her an apology for hiding her crutches. Not for getting up, screaming at her face, calling her a slut pig. None of that. So then it's like, do you feel like you owe her one? And Kim says she owes me one. I owe her one. The difference is I owe her one for moving her crutches and other things. Like, how are you in recovery and not owning all your shit? I don't know. and she owes me one for hurting the people I love. One daughter cries and the other told me she doesn't know how hard it is to walk down the street. For just saying that, wondering if you're doing crystal meth. I mean, that to me, that was a joke. Like, no one on the planet thought you were on meth. Like, let's be so fucking for real. But we all know you're on alcohol. Or maybe your daughters are having a hard time walking around because of your alcoholism, which was outed by your sister, by the way, not Brandy. So maybe have that conversation. But also, like, you cannot lay your daughters crying on Brandy's feet. This is crazy to me. So then viewer asks, will you forgive Brandy for her comments or act civil to her? And Kim says, I will never forgive her comments or forget it. I won't even walk into her room but I won't walk into her room anymore and not acknowledge her. Andy says, your behavior on the show was puzzling at times, especially at Sir. And Kim says, I feel bad for her, talking about herself in the third person, and that she basically doesn't recognize herself. And she says that was just sad. So Andy asks about Ken. Are they still together? No. And Kim has moved into a hotel room. And a viewer question, do you think Kyle was right about Ken, that he wasn't right for you? And Kim says, we'll never admit that Kim was right, or that Kyle was right. You can love someone and not live with them. And then Andy says, how is the relationship with your kids these days? And she says, it's awesome. They changed a lot. They couldn't bear to be around me and to see where I was at. So maybe that's why your daughter's crying. Like, please, this is driving me nuts. So now Kyle comes out and they get to do a little segment together. And she says, this is the real Kim. What you saw in season 2 was a different Kim. Andy says, you were the one that suggested for Kim to be on the Real Housewives. Is that a decision you regret? And Kyle says, no, I don't, because a lot of what happened between the two of us was passive aggressive. We had built up so much animosity. In the long run, being on the show could have helped our situation. Kim says, Kyle has a real thing about the back of limousines. This was just a release of emotions that had been going on in our heads for a long time. And so Andy says, how do you feel about the fact that Kyle brought up your alcoholism? Kyle says, I feel bad about that. And Kim says, I still feel really bad about it. I think there was a better way to do it than that. Andy says, after the accusation was made in the limo, then we all got together at the reunion, and it was something that you guys were still uncomfortable discussing. Why are you okay with discussing it now versus then? And Kim says, I think there was guilt, shame, embarrassment, and the fight was too uncomfortable. Kyle says, the way we were raised was to keep things private, and it's not something that we wanted out there for millions of people to see. Kim says, I'm not here to talk about my argument with Kyle. That's private. I'm just here to say that I'm an alcoholic. Okay, well, we want to know about your argument with Kyle, but whatever. Andy says, how does it feel for you hearing your sister say those words in front of cameras? And Kyle says, it's a bit of a relief because I know that's part of her road to recovery, so I know she's on the right path. Then he asks, how stressful was it for you being on the show with your sister, knowing privately what she's going through? And this is like the question that I was always wondering, like, being on a reality TV show with your alcoholic sister that you're having to hide that information was probably more stressful than anything else. Kyle said, she was being exposed and it was difficult because I still had a lot of anger. I didn't want to upset her and at the same time set her off and make things worse. A lot of what happened on game night is because I had a lot of nervous tension and I was protective of at the same time. So what Kyle has been trying to kind of explain is that being around her sister in all of season 2 caused her a lot of anxiety and tension. And so at game night, she was lashing out because she was being protective. And then when that whole crystal meth stuff happened, it was just like, there was no going back from that. And I understand that, but also it's just like, you did this to yourself. So then Andy asked Kim, did you resent her for trying to be overprotective? Kim says, I don't think that's what I was angry about. That part I love. It was when she was trying to get in the middle of all my business. Kyle says, we are close with each other's children. And Kim's like, right, you think you're the mother to my children. And Kyle's like, well, you think you're the mother to my children. So I don't know exactly what all the business Kim is referring to here. I don't know if it's issues with her daughters that we're just not privy to, because there was like some issues in the first season, and then maybe her kids not wanting to be around Ken, or if it's specifically Ken. We really don't know, and they don't tell us. So then Andy asks, the most notorious example of you being late was Hawaii. What was going on there? So then Kim then explains about her driver's license and just that she couldn't find her passport because she just moved. And it's like, okay, why wouldn't you just say that when you got there? Like, Andy said, you've told me already, by that point of going to Hawaii, that your sobriety had gotten away from you. So why would you put this in that bucket? I don't really know what his question is. And she said, I guess what he's asking is, you had already said that your alcoholism was out of control. So would you say that being late to Hawaii was because of your alcoholism? Okay, I got what I wrote down. And Kim's like, I would either way because my behavior was that of an alcoholic. And I think the other thing is like her driver's license had expired, and Kyle was like, let's go renew our driver's license. And then Kim had lied and just said she'd already done it. And that was another reason why Kyle was mad, because it was like, well, we could have gone to the DMV together. Like I had offered to for us to go. And then you just said it was already taken care of. And I think that that whole thing can be roped into just her blaming her alcoholism. Not blaming, but whatever. So then Andy says, once Kim arrived in Hawaii, she wanted you to let it go and you couldn't. And Kyle's like, no, I could not, because we had all been discussing it. We were all together. And so when she walked in, I was expecting her to say something to everyone. And Kim was like, what did you expect? We had already missed it. And you know how stressed I was. And Kyle says, well, traveling together and being together is part of the fun. You missed out on a big part of the trip. And Kim says, I'm sorry for missing the flight. I'm sorry for not being there. And Kyle's like, well, what she missed in all that was that the only thing I wanted was to have her there. And I do appreciate this. Kim is owning up. And that's the thing, like in order to, I think that's I don't know, 12 steps or whatever, but I feel like being on your sobriety journey is being open to accepting and apologizing for the shit that you did that hurt the people that love you. You know what I mean? So if you're just not willing to do any of that, then that's a little bit of bullshit. And what Kyle is saying is like, I was only upset about you not being there because I wanted to be with you. So then we move on, and Andy says, at SIR, you told Kyle you were going to have a baby. And Kim was like, I was pretty sure. I was 3 months behind. And then she was like, I was late, but I was wrong. So what that says to me is maybe her alcoholism made her so unhealthy that she did skip periods, because she was very thin, and that if you lose a lot of weight, you can skip periods. But probably it was menopause. You can be in perimenopause for 10 years. So, you don't have to be like 55 years old. I mean, I've been experiencing symptoms for 3 or 4 years at this point, and I have a regular period every month, so it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So Andy says, what makes you feel like this time is going to stick? And I think he means her sobriety. And Kyle says, well, because she didn't go kicking and screaming. She wanted to go, and when she hugged me goodbye, I think we were both angry for so long that when she left that day and I went to go give her a hug, I could already feel her being a very different Kim. We held each other for a long time, for the first time in years, and I could just tell she was in a different mindset. And that is actually the end of the episode. So I will say, spoiler alert, but Kim still does struggle very much with her sobriety. Even, I don't know about even to this day, but this is a thing that she's not kicked, which is sad and terrible. And just the thing that says this is not just like some easy, it's something that people have to live with every single day of their life. And we should, give Kim a little bit of grace. She's struggling every single day. She is with us for several more seasons. And that is the end of that. So let's wrap up. Again, S tier season. I loved it. I think some of the things to take away was Taylor. I think that was the big thing, was learning about domestic abuse, domestic violence, and just maybe having our minds open to that. I think about this season, some more minor takeaways are Lisa Vanderpump truly is a master at the at Housewives, and she is really behind the scenes because I will say, when all this stuff was happening, like in real time, when I was watching this, when it was airing, I totally did not get that. I was like, what is she talking about, Bobby Fischer? Like, I was confused by that for a really long time. I remember it sticking out in my brain. And like I said, that comment comes back. We talk about it a lot. And I was just like, I don't get it. I never got it. Now I understand, just by having more of like a macro view of Housewives. I understand what she was doing, but she's so masterful at it that we don't see it. And people are trying to do that today, but they're clumsy. And so you see it and you can pick it out. Heather Gay is a perfect example. Giselle, I would say, is an example that are going on right now, of not being as masterful about it and just being clumsy. Lisa Vanderpump was never clumsy. The problem is Kyle is also trying to do some of those similar things. Maybe not then, but now she understands it, and more so from being like a producer standpoint. That's another thing I can't get on. I can't get on so many soapboxes at once. I can only stand on one. But the Housewives producing is a thing I do not like. But anyway, it was just masterful that I didn't even realize she was doing it until like years later. And finally, it was just like very obvious that she was doing it, but it wasn't obvious until the end. You know what I'm saying? And also it made the show good. It hasn't been that good since Lisa Vanderpump has left. There's just like a, something missing. Je ne sais quoi, I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, but I think that's something that now, doing a rewatch, knowing that moving forward, maybe we'll be able to pick out those pieces. I think that the dynamics, like the group dynamics moving forward, are very interesting, how everything kind of changes. We lose Camille. And again, she's always around, so we don't really lose Camille. We gain Yolanda Foster. Yolanda Foster, Mohammed's ex-wife. And Yolanda Foster is interesting for many reasons. The one thing I remember about Yolanda Foster, one of my favorite sayings, and I always am looking for like this gift, because I'm the queen of like sending just a housewife gif, is who is Adrienne Maloof in this world? The two things that I remember about Adrienne Maloof are the Maloof hoof and the who is Adrienne Maloof in this world. But also, speaking of Adrienne, my thoughts about her are not great. Like, I used to just be neutral. Like, Adrienne didn't bother me. I just, last season I was so much in like, oh, Adrienne's like this regular person. And yes, well, I still think she is a regular person, considering she grew up among like immense wealth. I don't like the way that Adrienne handled a lot of the things that were going on this season. And I think because maybe she thought she could be producing like Lisa was. I don't appreciate the way that she handled a lot of the stuff with Taylor. she did not handle it with grace or with tact. She was not there for her friend. She was just like really taking a step back, whereas Kyle and Lisa were like digging in. And Adrian, who was supposed to be her friend, is taking a step back. Same thing with Brandy. Adrian brought Brandy in, and, she's taking a step back because of one or two things that Brandy says, whereas Lisa is taking a step forward and digging in with this friendship. It's just very strange to me. And that's the thing. It's just like that on the surface level, I don't understand what her motivations are, because it just, to me, it seems like very surface level relationship with Taylor. Like, it's truly, you're really not her friend if you're not gonna like, and maybe it's just like she had been doing it for so much longer than everyone else that she was just tired. I get it. Like, there might be a reason that I'm unaware of. But yeah, I don't know. The other thing was that kind of came to my mind when we were talking about Kim and her alcoholism was, maybe it wasn't for Taylor. Maybe it wasn't the money. Maybe it was the friends. Like, and now talking about Adrian, I'm thinking that might be the case. If she had lost her status as a rich Beverly Hills person, she probably would have lost all of her relationships. And I don't know, that's sad to me. Yeah, but that's that. Let me just reread the taglines again, because I love a tagline. Lisa Vanderpump, life in Beverly Hills is a game and I make the rules. And oh my God, now looking back on that, it's like, yes, at least for the show. And she's winning. All I do is win, win, win. And Kyle's, which I think is my favorite still. I'm not the richest girl in Beverly Hills, but I am the luckiest, which, yeah, I agree with that too, because other than Lisa Vanderpump, she's got the most fulfilled, like, just regular life. She's got this husband who adores her, all these beautiful daughters. She's got this new beautiful house that she loves. And like, everything is just like, she's winning as well, right? Just like in life, she's winning. Kim's, people try to figure me out, but I'm one of a kind. I think people are trying to figure you out because your behavior is erratic. Taylor's, I finally found my voice and I'm not afraid to use it. Yeah, okay. So she confronted Lisa Vanderpump. She left her marriage. Okay, cool. Adrian's, having it all is easy if you're willing to work for it. Something a Nepo baby would say. Like, what the fuck? I understand that she works in her business, but yeah, like, she wouldn't have what she has if she wasn't born into that. And then Camille says, diamonds aren't a girl's best friend. Freedom is. Cool. I like that too. I do like Camille's. I think in the beginning that was my favorite. I think Kyle's is my favorite now, because I do feel like, yeah. Again, I've watched the taglines are, of course, in the beginning of every single episode. So it's like you can reflect on them throughout the season. Kyle's would be my favorite if it didn't mention Beverly Hills. Again, Kyle always mentions Beverly Hills, or my town, where I'm from, this town, like whatever. And I can't stand it because it's not universally applied. But that's it for season 2 of Beverly Hills. It's going to be a while before we get back to Beverly Hills, which I'm sad about because I love Beverly Hills so much. Next week, we're going to be talking about Shaws of Sunset. So that is again on Peacock. If you're watching this, not the Valley Persian style, that is the brand new show, the original Shaws of Sunset. We're skipping forward in a little bit in the timeline, but I just need a little bit of a Housewives break. And, the new Shaw's show has premiered. So I just wanted to do a little bit of Shaw's. So we'll do that. That's going to take up 2 weeks. There's only 6 episodes. After that, we will be doing The Real Housewives of Atlanta season 4. So if you want to get ready for that, thank you so much for joining me. I hope everyone has an amazing week. Also, in the South, we are getting ready to have a huge snowstorm, snow/ice, and it's kind of unpredictable on what is going on. So episodes, if I don't have episodes next week, is because I lost power. If I do, then that means that everything is fine. But just thank you for your flexibility for this. And when I change my schedule, and also don't forget, this is always my closing statement out for the week. Please, 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 no matter what happens, where you are in the world, where you are in my country, always keep joy alive. Fascism cannot take away our joy. It can do a lot. It cannot take away our joy. Never, ever, ever forget that. They cannot beat us down if we stay in community. They cannot win if we keep hope and joy in our hearts. Okay. That is like the message of every piece of literature you've ever seen based on dystopian, that is A New Hope is, Star Wars, and the smallest things can defeat, evil gods. That's Lord of the Rings. You know what I'm saying? So keep joy and hope in your heart, and we will get through this together. Okay. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye.